Hello, friend. Here at Death Party, we talk a lot about death. That's just our guarantee to you.
I know this comes as a shock to our longtime listeners. I myself am flabbergasted.
What keeps us going in the morning is our commitment to the craft of bringing lots of death into your home or transportation mode during your daily commute or wherever you listen.
Just the topic. We're not like cursing your family or anything.
Speak for yourself, sister! So, in talking a lot about death, we also feel the need to remind you that it is not our intention to glamorize death.
Don't sue us, we're poor.
Or sexifice it in any way, as the kids might say.
Do kids say that?
Not right now.
Are you trying to start a trend of kids saying sexifice?
I don't know what you're talking about.
This is your any hoozle thing all over again, isn't it?
Any hoozle. It is our sincere hope as death-curious folk who are simply interested in unraveling the great mysteries of the universe, nothing more.
So simple. Just the universe, that's all.
That you, our listener, are clear on the fact that knowledge and entertainment are at the heart of this podcast. And we are not interested in glorifying death or otherwise making it sound like death is some sort of a solution.
Unless... If someone were to die by falling into, like, a vat of acid...
What?
Then it would be a solution.
Okay.
Get it? A solution is a homogeneous mixture composed of two or more substances. The solvent in the substance that does the dissolving, usually a liquid, the acid. The solute is the substance that gets dissolved. In this case, it would be the person that fell into the acid. Get it?
Get out. Like I was saying, death is not a solution to worldly problems. It is an inevitability and a natural process that comes at the end of life, at least as of this writing. Who knows what the future will bring? Faye and I are anxious about death. Yes?
You left out the very. I am very anxious.
Did you come back just to add that?
Yes.
Honestly, yeah, I am also unusually anxious about dying, and this show helps us cope with that anxiety.
Except sometimes, when it makes it worse.
Yeah, but, like, only temporarily. Hopefully. Overall, the idea is to alleviate that death anxiety for the long term. Raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens.
What's happening?
It's just too dark. And when things get dark, you gotta think about the good stuff.
I see where you're going with that. Out of context, I thought I was going to get stabbed or discover a dark secret or something. Why are movies abusing all the innocent soundtracks these days? Like, if you heard a music box playing out of nowhere, you expect to come around a corner and find a little kid with blacked out eyes grinning at you from the middle of a cornfield or something.
Well, thanks, because now I'm going to be expecting a black-eyed kid when I think of my Safe Space song.
I blame Netflix.
Well, we hope that listening to this show helps you, dear listener, cope with your death anxiety, too.
And doesn't make it worse.
Yeah. Which brings us to this episode, and a subject that has touched us and people that we have cared about. When I say that suicide has touched many lives, I don't just mean the lives of people who've died by suicide. It also affects those whose lives continue after the deceased no longer walks among us. Death by suicide brings complicated feelings and questions that loved ones are left to cope with in the void that is the aftermath. We're going to talk about how individuals can help a loved one who is suicidal later in this episode, but we wanted to be clear that this is a very serious subject, which has historically been dealt with as a taboo, and is only recently being more responsibly reported with, for example, the terminology surrounding suicide shifting from committed suicide, antiquated, to died by suicide, to reduce associations with crime.
I learned so much here. I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah, good to know this show is having a positive impact on at least one person other than me.
The proof is in the numbers, baby. And that number is 2.
2. So instead of giving you a bunch of depressing facts about suicide or covering it in a historical context, which, if you're new to the show, that's kind of my jam normally.
It's true. And my glorious old man jokes are the peanut butter that gobs it all together.
Yum. Instead, we're going to use this episode to tell you about some amazing suicide preventers who are really just fantastic everyday people who made a difference by caring enough to intervene.
Oh, I love that. Look at us being all positive. Did something happen? What did I miss?
Don't maybe kick you out of the room next time and you won't miss important stuff.
Hey, I'll miss important stuff if I want.
If you or someone you know is in crisis, stop listening to this and call or text the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at, as I said, 988. The 988 Lifeline provides 24-hour confidential support to anyone in suicidal crisis or emotional distress.
Yeah, and I want to remind everyone that you should never listen to us if you're in real emotional distress, because my jokes will definitely make that worse.
Yeah, also, I just say up top, we're not doctors or therapists. If you didn't know that or couldn't figure it out at this point, just be real confident about that information. If you prefer an online resource, go to wanttotalkaboutit.com. Fun fact, if you type it all lowercase, you do get the word tit in there, so that's pretty fun. Might be a good gauge of the person's mood and general outlook, whether they giggle at typing tit in.
You're okay then.
Or maybe it's not a gauge at all, because they're much more mature than I am and don't still giggle at blue words. But hey, you know them better than we do. Use your best discretion.
Yeah, and be careful when you're typing it in that you don't accidentally type "want to talk about tits," because that will take you to a totally different website.
Call 911 in life-threatening situations. If you are worried about a friend's social media updates, you can contact safety teams at the social media company. They have processes to reach out to connect the person with the help they need.
Oh, wow. I'm learning so much today.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly wouldn't think that social media companies would give two shits, but maybe that's because they've been accused of increasing the likelihood of self-harm and suicide, so they're like watching their legal backs.
Yeah.
On second thought, if someone out there finds themselves in this position, maybe call 911 and contact the safety teams just in case it turns out that the social media companies only give one shit and not two.
Mm-hmm.
Or 911 puts you on indefinite hold. Remember when that happened?
I do not.
It was during COVID. People were calling 911 here and just being put on hold. Like for hours. It was in the newspaper. You don't remember that? I guess you never had to call 911.
I possibly chose to forget it, is what happened. It sounds like vaguely familiar, maybe, but maybe I'm just thinking of being on an unemployment line for like 6 hours.
That too. I think all of the lines were 6 hours. Well, I guess so. The moral of the tale is just use all of the resources in case maybe one of them doesn't work out.
Yeah. Calling 911 is usually solid these days, and I definitely wouldn't put anyone's life in the hands of any social media companies. But having that option in your back pocket, along with other more traditional and, dare I say, physical options for support, are always good in case one is more useful than another.
What does that mean, physical options?
Oh, like reaching out and maybe giving them a hug, or like physical options, like just being there in person with them.
Got it.
Yeah. If you don't know anyone in crisis at the moment,
then they haven't been listening to my jokes.
Keep listening, and we'll give you some ideas about how to help should you encounter anyone who is displaying suicidal thoughts or actions. There are some truly incredible stories on this big blue marble we live on, and we're going to take you through a few of them that we hope will give you hope and maybe even make the subject of suicide a little easier to broach. First up, we have the story of how an iconic 80s rocker apparently saved someone from death by suicide.
Wow.
The shooting of a music video was interrupted when none other than Livin' on a Prayer singer John Bon Jovi walks over to a woman standing on the outside ledge of the bridge they were shooting on, thereby momentarily halting production.
Whoa.
Yeah. So he and a production assistant walk over, and they talk to the woman who's facing the water, and then after talking for a little while, the production assistant assists the woman in turning around to face the bridge.
It's in the job title. Good job assisting assistant.
Mm-hmm. Then she and Bon Jovi each grab one of the woman's arms and help her over the railing and back onto the bridge. Wow. Yeah. Representatives for Bon Jovi have told several media outlets that he wouldn't comment on the incident, which, the right decision for a decent human being to make.
Meanwhile, here we are commenting on it like horrible humans. Also, if I was the other party involved, I would be telling everyone I know, like, oh my God, you guys won't believe who I met the other day. He touched my arm.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to imagine what would have been going through the woman's head when 1 minute you don't think life can get any worse, and the next minute the man who has sung lyrics like, I just want to live while I'm alive. I don't know how the song actually goes. I didn't listen to it. But I found those lyrics, thought it was appropriate. So he's sidling up to you and presumably telling you it's going to get better. You can't go through with it.
Right? I really hope she was a massive Bon Jovi fan.
Hopefully if she wasn't before, she is now.
She's like, oh, thanks for saving my life. Your music, though, meh, not my thing. If she wasn't a fan, then I really don't understand the meaning of the universe or any of this.
Yeah. What are the odds that a Grammy Award-winning recording artist is going to stop you in the midst of the potentially lowest point in your life and be all, hey, don't do this. Take it from a cowboy who was once wanted dead or alive.
What are the odds? Dude, also what are the odds? I just looked this up, and Bon Jovi has extensive training in speaking to people going through a crisis.
What?
He has a foundation.
What?
This wasn't just any old super famous and successful rock star and production assistant strolling in to save the day. He founded the JBJ Soul Foundation almost 20 years ago.
Is he ferrying the souls? What was with that name? I mean, I guess he kind of is in this case.
Ferrying the soul?
Ferr, ferrying.
Oh, across the river.
Yeah. So, okay, he founded this foundation.
Yeah, and it helps people struggling with issues like homelessness and hunger. They have restaurants in New Jersey where people who can't afford a meal can just dine for free with dignity. I'm losing my mind. I was like, do we need to move to New Jersey and volunteer there?
No, absolutely not. Sorry, New Jersey. I've already done my time in the Northeast. I'm over it.
It's pretty amazing. They have restaurants in New Jersey where people who can't afford a meal can dine for free with dignity.
What?
I'm losing my mind.
Yeah.
Do we need to move to New Jersey and volunteer there?
No. Absolutely not.
I just feel like I fell into a parallel dimension for a minute where every day isn't a new, fresh crap storm hell. I mean, give me a minute. I'm sure it will all come rushing back when someone turns on the news and our country is still being mutinied. But wow.
Yeah.
Do you think Bon Jovi went up to the woman and was like, take my hand and we'll make it, I swear. Oh, living on a prayer. Or probably, that was really great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oof.
Or probably he went up to her and was super empathic and gentle and talked to her about things can get better even when it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah.
And we all have hard times, but tomorrow's a whole new day. And the possibilities are endless. And she's just standing there on the bridge thinking that things can't turn around. But look at us now. Did you think this morning that you would run into John Bon Jovi? And he tells her how life can just surprise you in an instant and how she feels low, but she has no idea how greatly she's already touched the lives of those around her.
Yeah.
And how important and truly loved she is and stuff. And he got through to her and she came down off the bridge. And only then did he realize that he could have told her, take my hand and we'll make it, I swear. Oh, living on a prayer. And he's so flabbergasted that he didn't even think to do the line from the song that when the news people inquired about the incident, he just didn't want to talk about it.
That seems like a very distinct possibility. He was like, gee, I really missed this moment for shameless self-promotion.
I can see it all now.
while trying to help someone get out of their darkest moment in their life.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a real workable theory there. All right. Hey, look, John Bon Jovi was getting a lot of credit here, but let's not forget the production assistant who, take it from me, I used to work on sets as a PA, and the pay is shit.
Even working for Bon Jovi?
Absolutely. They don't care. They don't care who you're working for. It's the same flat rate. It's the job is the job is the job, and it doesn't matter who's you're working with at all. Like, oftentimes less than a minimum wage. because it's an entry-level job, it's one of the only positions on a set that's not represented by a union, so they pay you a day rate, and when all the union workers go home after 12 hours because, God forbid, they get any overtime pay, PAs often pull down 15 or 16-hour days, sometimes more, and that day rate doesn't include overtime, unless you've somehow pre-negotiated it with the producer, which... that was a joke. That's not a thing. Try to pre-negotiate and they'll just hire someone else who's younger with a more load-bearing back, and you can say goodbye to that credit on that cool show with that big star in it that everyone will be talking about in 6 months when it comes out. But anyway, hopefully this PA made at least minimum wage or got some work out of it, because assisting someone who's contemplating suicide is definitely above their pay grade, as well as the general job description. Not everyone can be halted in the middle of a suicide attempt by a rocker who has the record for the most Billboard Top 10 singles from a hard rock album.
And a production assistant.
Thank you. But that doesn't mean there aren't still amazing and caring people out there. Everyday people, like you and me. Well, maybe not me. I'm a once every other day at the most person.
Yeah, not me either, because I would care, but have too much anxiety to approach them in case I was the needle in the haystack that broke the camel's back.
I'm sure that's not right, but I get what you're putting down.
Okay.
Our next story is of an individual whose life was saved by the intervention of one of his friends who was an everyday person. This at first super sad, but ultimately heartwarming story was recorded in a TED Talk given by Aaron Stark. I stumbled across this TED Talk a few years back when I fell down the YouTube click hole one day. And if you haven't seen it, let me just say, it is not the most comfortable thing to watch. You can tell Stark is not comfortable on stage. He's not a practiced, at-ease speaker, and he is saying some extremely hard-to-hear things.
They could have at least turned his microphone up if he was extremely hard to hear.
But he is up on a stage in front of a live audience of hundreds of people, and who knows how many more people will ultimately watch his talk online, bravely telling his extremely personal story of childhood neglect and abuse. So that's a content warning for you right there. He talked about wrestling with thoughts of taking his own life as a teenager. Stark's parents eventually kicked him out when he was still a teen, but fortunately he had at least one true friend during this time, although he admits he did not treat this friend particularly well. When Stark reached out to social services in a last-ditch effort to get help for his overwhelming depression, which he was sure would lead him to suicide, social services reconnected him with his mother, who told him to do a better job next time and that she would help him with his next suicide attempt.
Wow. Not exactly winning any Mother of the Year awards.
Yeah, I doubt she was even nominated for any Mother of the Block awards.
Is that a thing?
I don't know. I definitely would have voted for a squirrel over her when I got my ballot. And they can be kind of dicks to birds. Plus, they love digging up my yard.
Yeah. They have the entire planet, and they still come back and dig up my strawberries and throw them on the ground like savages.
They can be a real menace, is what I'm saying. But you get the point. This gal was a real butthole.
I'm sure she was just doing her best with whatever kind of crap upbringing she also got. You know,
Yeah.
trauma just loves to kick shit down the line to the next generation. But I still would have voted for the squirrel, I think. I'm still pretty mad about my strawberry plants, though. I'll have to think about it.
Do you have enough strawberry plants for sharing?
Not yet, but next year they will have runners.
Bright copper kettles and warm woolen mittens.
Nope, it's still creepy.
Well, hopefully I won't need my safe space song because we're about to get to the heartwarming part.
Yay!
Okay, so Stark seriously contemplated taking his own life, but he also considered taking other people's lives too in a public shooting, which he planned, even to the point of acquiring a gun and narrowing the location of the planned shooting down to 2 places.
You said we were getting to the heartwarming part.
Sorry, just a little bit more of the really upsetting part first.
Ugh, so much upsetting parts.
The title of the TED Talk is I Was Almost a School Shooter, and in just under 8 minutes, Stark outlines how he went from an angry kid who wanted to take himself out or take his rage out on the world to the man standing up on stage telling the audience how to help another depressed kid value their life enough to find a reason to keep going, however simple that reason might be. He outlines the abuse he grew up with from his family members, his nomadic lifestyle that put him in new schools a couple times a year, a couple of times a year, and his resultant feelings of being worthless and unwanted anywhere. Although it was hard for him to make friends due to his family's constant moving and the fact that after years of being bullied, he decided to become the bully, he wasn't completely without friends. Of one friend, Stark says, "Even though I had stolen from him and lied to him, he didn't care. He still brought me in and showed me acts of kindness. Just simple acts. It was just sitting down next to me. Hey, would you like a meal? Let's watch a movie." He treated me like it was a Tuesday. He treated me like I was a person. When someone treats you like a person when you don't even feel like a human, it'll change your entire world, and it did to me. He stopped me with his acts of kindness from committing an atrocity that day. Love the ones you feel deserve it the least because they need it the most. It'll help you just as much as it helps them.
Damn, that is heartwarming.
I told you it would be.
Wait, no.
What?
That's depressing.
Why?
Because it's 2025 and we're like, aw, a kid found one person that didn't treat him like the bottom of a dumpster. Time to celebrate America, yo. It's heartwarming in the same way that we don't just regularly crush people to death for kicks anymore.
Thanks, Dark Ages.
Yeah, progress, but also no, still depressing.
Well, maybe depressing in a heartwarming way is as good as it gets right now.
I guess I'll take it. I mean, look who's president. Yeah, I'll take it, I guess. Yay!
I've mostly been paraphrasing Stark's talk here, but the next time you have 8 minutes of downtime, I would highly recommend you watch the full video if you can handle it, because it's one thing to talk about his story, but it's another thing entirely to hear it firsthand from the person who lived it. Not only that, but it is the story of so many other kids in this country and around the world who are intensely hurting inside and think of suicide as the only way out. But it isn't the only way out. Even when the system and his own family failed Stark miserably, he still managed to see just enough of a glimmer of hope in a single friendship that he scrapped his plans to open fire on a group of people in public and make it into adulthood, where he's considerably happier and surrounded by a new family who actually shows him love. Yeah. So the good news is we're going to end on what I think is the most uplifting story of this episode, and that Bon Jovi.
And production assistant.
Thank you. That one was pretty uplifting.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. Our final story follows an Australian.
Crikey.
Just an everyday guy. And this time I mean that literally, because he was attempting to thwart, and often succeeded in thwarting, people from acting on their suicidal thoughts almost daily.
That's a lot of thwarting. Is that your word of the day?
It's a good word. And dare I say, underutilized. What other English words even start with THW? Thwack? And, nope, that's all I got. English is truly a bizarre language.
Verily.
All right. In Australia, at the entrance to Sydney Harbour, there's a dramatic cliff overlooking the sea called the Gap, which is infamous as a place where suicides occur. Don Ritchie lived across the street from the Gap for 50 years, and he took it upon himself to start conversations with anyone who looked suicidal. Every morning, he would watch the cliff for anyone standing alone, close to the edge. His technique was simple and echoed what Aaron Stark said worked for him. Ritchie would approach the person at the edge and ask them if they'd like to talk or even join him for some tea. Reminder, this is Australia, which is why he didn't offer them coffee. Although, when someone is going through the worst time in their life, caffeine probably isn't going to help the situation as much as a nice cup of chamomile might.
Good point. Also, tea is the best. I hope he served it out of a little decorated teapot.
Oh, what does a man's teapot look like? I've never been served tea by a man in his home. Another sad fact of living in America. Since the man I know best not only doesn't much drink tea, but rarely buys things that aren't strictly utilitarian, I imagine it is the most basic teapot you can fathom. Oh no! What if he doesn't even have a teapot? What if he has an electric kettle? Damn it! I really wanted to believe he had a teapot covered in spruce trees or something woodsy.
I think he does.
Let's say so. It's estimated that Don Ritchie helped between 160 to over 500 people walk safely away from the cliff's edge.
Man.
All by taking the time to talk to them and listen kindly.
What a little darling.
Yeah.
We need to pour one out, one teacup out for Richie.
A little, yeah. If I ever go to Australia and visit his grave, we're leaving him some tea or some sugar cubes.
I wonder if people put like little baggies of tea on his headstone.
Oh, yeah. I wasn't able to find out if Richie had any formal training in suicide prevention, but the Centers for Disease Control website counsels everyone can help prevent suicide by learning the warning signs, promoting prevention and resilience, and committing to social change. Watch for the signs of increased suicide risk, such as isolation, loss, mental illness, and substance abuse. Act with these 5 steps to help save the life of someone who may be suicidal. 1. Ask. 2. Be there.
Preferably with a cup of tea.
3. Help keep them safe. 4. Help them to connect. And 5. Follow up.
Honestly, more tea at this point would also be good.
The CDC links these 5 steps from this website, BeThe12.com. The alphabet letters BETHE 1 as in the number, TO as in the word, .com. It's bad. Such a bad website.
Not the word dot, just a period.
Right. Period. Yeah.
They're like, good luck finding our website when you're in crisis
Hey, do you
mode.
need help right the now? Too bad. You're going to type in this URL for about 10 minutes before you get it right.
Wow, the room for error on that is tremendous.
Yeah, I know. Seriously. You can also find the link in our show notes, too.
Okay, good.
By the way, this was researched before DJ Tiny Hands took office, so all CDC information comes from the Biden administration.
So dipshit in charge has probably deleted it all by now, too.
If you're listening and you're not American, CDC, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, is a science-based federal agency. And then DJ Tiny Hands is what I call the shitty actor who was formerly on The Apprentice and currently is the quote-unquote president of the United States, but is actually acting in the best interests of billionaires and oligarchs representing other countries instead of the American people. The nickname DJ Tiny Hands is based on his initials and the fact that having tiny hands is something he's actually self-conscious about.
Yeah, but unconcerned about also being a rapist, allegedly.
According to BeThe12.com, and again, the only number in there is 1 and everything else is letters, whatever. The first step is asking, are you thinking about suicide?
Whoa, just straight to the point like that?
Yeah. So the idea being that this communicates you're open to speaking about suicide in a non-judgmental and supportive way. Studies show that asking at-risk individuals if they are suicidal does not increase suicides or suicidal thoughts. Instead, studies suggest the opposite. Acknowledging and talking about suicide may actually reduce suicidal ideation. If you're not sure exactly how to talk about it, head to the Mayo Clinic webpage titled, What to Do When Someone is Thinking About Suicide.
Most web browsers will also put emergency services information front and center if you type in any question along those lines. Researching this episode has me on a watch list.
Yeah,
sure.
You and me both. The second step is to be present and supportive of the suicidal person while you're engaging with them.
This should probably also involve giving them tea.
Feelings of isolation are closely tied to suicidal thoughts and ideation, so connectedness acts as a buffer against hopelessness and psychological pain. Step 3, keeping them safe, means reducing a suicidal person's access to highly lethal means. There's a myth that if someone wants to kill themselves, they'll find a way. No! That myth has been debunked by a number of studies. The goal here is to put time and distance between the person and their chosen method, especially methods that have shown higher lethality, like firearms and medications. This is sadly a very politically charged topic here in the US of A, where gun ownership is highly politicized for some stupid bullshit reasons, when really most Americans actually do agree with common sense gun control, but you can't even use the term gun control without some people getting their underpants all in a twist like, oh, boo-hoo, the government is coming to take my guns. Whee! My right for my gun to go off and kill a family member because I decided not to put it in a safe is being taken away. I have to have it tucked away between my couch cushions because that's where myself or my 2-year-old who's in charge of the house when I'm working are going to need it most. But that's outside outside of the focus of this episode right here, right now. So get their gun away from them if you can manage it.
Well, once their hands are full with this nice piping hot cup of tea,
all those other worries just fly right out of the window.
Hot liquids are very grounding.
Yes, that's true. It is a good mindfulness practice, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Taking their gun away is especially important because, hey, any idea what the most common method of suicide is?
How to move out of America.
Yeah. Now, not a trick question. In the U.S., it is indeed suicide by firearm. It is so pervasive that the second most common method of suicide, suffocation, occurs half as often. Over 55% of suicides in this country occur because a firearm was used, whereas in suicide by suffocation, the percentage is less than half, or 24%.
I don't find either of those appealing. Just out of curiosity, how far down on the list is death by fire ants?
We're being serious.
I can't. This is making me sad.
4, help them connect. This means throwing them a safety net, checking what types of resources they have access to, as well as community-based supports they can turn to. Website, betheone2.com.
I don't even know if autocorrect is going to manage that spelling.
Yeah, seriously. It suggests that finding out if the suicidal person has access to a mental health professional with whom they have established a relationship. And if they don't, reminder that I mentioned the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at the top of this episode. It's totally free. All a person has to do is call or text 988 to be connected to a counselor. There's also a chat option on the website, which is 988lifeline.org. And unlike Be the One Too, they put all the numbers right up front, which is very helpful. Counseling is available in English, Spanish, and via video phone for users who are deaf or hard of hearing. 240 other languages are also available for translation, but those are only available by calling in. 988 Lifeline offers confidential, judgment-free care, and users are not required to share personal information in order to receive services. 988 Lifeline provides counseling services for people who are suicidal, yes, but they also offer counseling for substance use disorder, economic worries, of all things, relationships, culture and identity, illness, intimate partner violence, depression, mental and physical illness, and loneliness.
I bet they're busy these days.
Is it just me, or does economic worries just not fit in with, like, domestic violence?
And a lot of these are just,
depression.
Yeah.
Yeah. If for whatever reason 988 Lifeline doesn't seem like the right option for helping them to connect, another option is helping them to outline a safety plan, and this plan can contain a list of trusted people to contact in the future should a crisis arise. The last step in an intervention with someone who is suicidal, according to betheone2.com, TO, may be the simplest in that it can be relatively quick compared to the other steps and is easy to remember for that reason. But it's also an easy one to overlook, so pay attention. You gotta follow up. This can be a text or call. You can ask if you can be of more assistance, or you can even just send a postcard. Who even gets mail anymore that isn't bills or appointment reminders? Send a friend a postcard right now, just for funsies. Show them that your interest in their well-being isn't limited to the crisis phase and that you think about them even when the immediate danger seems to have passed. Studies on this follow-up contact have shown a reduction in deaths by suicide in high-risk populations once they have been discharged from acute care services. Whether you know someone who is experiencing suicidal ideation or have just some amorphous concerns about a depressed loved one, please just know that studies have shown that talking about suicide can actually reduce suicidal ideation. Aaron Stark's story is a reminder that one person just being a decent person can make a huge impact on a single life. Although in his case, simple acts of kindness actually impacted not just Stark, but his wife and 4 children, children who never would have existed had Stark decided all those years ago to follow through with his suicidal plans. So if you know anyone who's talking about suicide, even if it sounds like a joke, ask them questions, be there for them, help to keep them safe, help them to connect, and follow up with them. Again, if you're not sure what to say, go to that Mayo Clinic page for specific suggestions. Not everyone who is having suicidal thoughts can be deterred, but it's worth it to try. Cream-colored ponies.
No.
Cream-colored ponies and crisp apple strudels, doorbells and sleigh bells and schnitzel with noodles. These are a few of my favorite things.
Are you done yet?
When the dog bites, when the bee stings, when I'm feeling sad, I simply remember my favorite things, and then I don't feel so bad.
If I got bit by a dog, I would not be like, oh, doorbells. I'm okay. I would be like, get me to a doctor.
Who needs a doctor?
I need a rabies shot now.
When you've got doorbells. What if it's just a very small dog?
What if it's a very small doorbell?
What if it's a very quiet doorbell?
Small dogs can still have big rabies.
Yeah, that's true.
How depressing and not funny does this have to turn out for us to not publish it?
Oh, you say that every episode. To be fair.
True.
Leave that out. Are you recording?
It's a shame we can't use any of this.
I know. How are we going to do this without offending people? All right. That's why I thought it was funny, but if it's not funny, that's fine. I don't know if any of this is appropriate for an episode about suicide prevention.
We're going to edit it down to like,
What
call
does-
988 if you have a friend in crisis. And then that's just it.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to leave any of that in there, but...
It's fine.
And this is not going into the recording. I don't think we could do that, but
Probably want to skip that.
I had a similar thought. There's not going to be a lot of material for you to choose from, I don't think. Because we're going to cut
I think
this. Oh, we can't make that joke. No.
Can I not make that joke?
I
either?
wouldn't. We just can't use them. We can't put that in the episode. All right. No, I'm not going to say it. Okay. Yeah. I don't know about that joke.
You don't know about any of the jokes.
This
This is a comedy show.